This is Lou Dobbs Tonight. News, debate, and opinion for Tuesday, July 3rd. Live from New York, sitting in for Lou Dobbs, Kitty Pilgrim.
Good evening, everybody. President Bush today raised the possibility of a full pardon for former White House aide Scooter Libby. One day after commuting Libby's 30-month prison sentence, the president said he would not rule in or rule out a pardon. Democratic lawmakers are furious with the president for commuting Libby's sentence. Libby was convicted of obstructing an investigation into the leak of a CIA officer's identity. Ed Henry reports. Ed?
Kitty, the fireworks were flying at the White House today when Tony Snow faced a lot of skepticism by claiming that the president had not handed Scooter Libby a political favor. The president handed out Purple Hearts to wounded soldiers at Walter Reed Army Medical Center, one day after commuting the prison sentence of Louis Scooter Libby, who helped leak the identity of former CIA operative Valerie Wilson, whose husband publicly questioned the White House's case for the Iraq War.
I took this decision very seriously on Mr. Libby.
Mr. Bush left the door wide open to a full pardon.
As to the future, I'm, rule nothing in and nothing out.
The president said the jury verdict that Libby lied to the FBI should stand, along with the $250,000 fine and 2 years of probation.
But I felt like the 30-month sentencing was severe and made a judgment, a considered judgment, that I believe is the right decision to make in this case, and I stand by it.
Spokesman Tony Snow struggled to answer a barrage of questions, such as whether Vice President Cheney went to bat for his former chief of staff.
The Vice President weigh in?
My guess is that I don't have direct knowledge, Ed, but on the other hand, the president did consult with most senior officials.
Why did the president ignore his own Justice Department's regular procedure?
Normally, somebody at least serves a day in jail, a week in jail.
Because the president thought the jail time, in fact, was inappropriate, and therefore he decided to proceed.
Jail time was excessive. The sentence was excessive.
Yeah, it was excessive.
Inappropriate.
All right, he said it was excessive, and he thought that any jail time was excessive.
Or why Karl Rove has not been fired, even though he played a role in the leak.
Do you stand by your pledge to fire anyone found to have done so?
Yes, and that's up to the U.S. Attorney to find the facts.
Now, Tony Snow said one of the reasons why the White House did not clear this through the Justice Department is that it's a very new case. It's not an old case where they had to go back to Justice and dig out a lot of details to refresh their memories. The president was very familiar with this case being in the headlines. As for Karl Rove, Snow said the White House is not going to offer any detailed response to his role in all of this case. But the bottom line is that flies in the face of the president offering detailed comments himself yesterday about why he why he commuted the sentence of Scooter Libby. He did that before all of the appeals were exhausted. Kitty?
Thanks very much, Ed Henry. Well, Special Prosecutor Patrick Fitzgerald challenged the president's assertion that Libby's sentence was excessive. Fitzgerald said Libby was sentenced under the same laws as other criminals. Fitzgerald said all citizens should, quote, stand before the bar of justice as equals, as he put it. Several Republican presidential candidates are publicly supporting President Bush's decision to commute Libby's sentence. Mitt Romney and Rudy Giuliani both called President Bush's decision, quote, reasonable. And former Senator Fred Thompson, a likely Republican presidential candidate, said the president's move, quote, will allow a good American who has done a lot for his country to resume his life. President Bush's show of mercy for Scooter Libby is renewing calls for presidential action in the case of former Border Patrol agents Ignacio Ramos and Jose Campion. Those agents were given harsh prison sentences for shooting and wounding an illegal alien drug smuggler from Mexico. The agents' supporters are demanding a full presidential pardon. Christine Romans reports.
The president decided this White House aide, sentenced to 30 months in prison for perjury and obstruction of justice, had suffered enough.
I felt the punishment was severe.
He commuted his sentence and would not rule out a full pardon.
Has a felony conviction, a $250,000 fine, 2 years probation, and basically has lost the way he has built a living in his entire life. That is a pretty significant punishment.
Supporters of former Border Patrol agents Ignacio Ramos and Jose Campion are asking for the same compassion. Ramos and Campion are also convicted felons. Their careers also over. They are serving sentences of 11 and 12 years for not following protocol and shooting a fleeing illegal alien drug smuggler in the buttocks.
Clearly, if Scooter Libby deserves a commutation, I would hope that the White House on this July 4th, tomorrow, would fully pardon Campion and Ramos. Ramos has already been beaten up in prison by some of the inmates who recognized him as a Border Patrol agent. I think they've been punished enough.
While the president has declared the 30-month sentence of a former aide excessive, he has let stand long prison sentences for the agents. The pardon is an exclusive power of the executive branch, and scores of lawmakers have demanded Bush add the convicted agents to the list. Bush has pardoned at least 10 convicted drug offenders, in addition to counterfeiters, embezzlers, tax evaders, and moonshiners. President Clinton pardoned 396 criminals, most famously fugitive financier Mark Rich and his own brother. This president's father was judicious with pardons, only 74, but Reagan pardoned 393. Among the 382 Ford pardons, one was for his predecessor, Richard Nixon.
President Bush is being assailed by Democrats for commutation of Libby's sentence, just as Clinton was criticized by conservatives for his pardon of Mark Rich. And as only befits the Beltway, Scooter Libby, Kitty, was once a lawyer for Mark Rich in Washington.
Thanks very much, Christine Romans. Well, President Bush today also focused on Iraq. In a telephone conversation with the Iraqi prime minister, the president blasted outside countries for meddling in Iraq, and one of those countries is Iran. U.S. officials say Iran is training and equipping insurgents for attacks against our troops. Michael Ware reports from Baghdad.
These American soldiers might not know it, but they have a bounty on their heads, according to U.S. military intelligence. A senior U.S.